Welcome to Try Not to Overthink It, where we explore the intricate landscape of mental health, well-being, and everyday life. I'm RJ.
And I'm Khalil.
Join us as we dive into insightful conversations, share expert perspectives, and personal stories that shed light on the various dimensions of mental wellness. Whether you're seeking guidance, inspiration, or a deeper understanding of the human mind, this podcast is your safe space to engage and navigate the journey to a happier, healthier self. If you're new to the channel, please like this video and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification button so that you don't miss out on any of the content. So today we are going to be talking about the topic of getting over your ex. For a lot of us, we struggle with this. And as Khalil pointed out when we were discussing what we were shooting on today, a lot of people will move on to another relationship and not unpack, not address the problems that occurred in their last relationship, which then, as Khalil pointed out in one of his mindfulness minutes, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And so if you do not address problems, and we've talked about this on here on several episodes, the things that you do not address will eventually address you. So it's very intuitive that Khalil picked this topic for us to discuss today. So Khalil, what do you think about this?
Well, one of the things that really got me into this topic is about some of the research done on how long it takes to get over your ex, right? So social psychological and personality science did a research in 2025, a recent study that just came out. And they said out of 300 participants, right, just to get halfway over your ex, it takes about 4.18 years, right? And you can look this up. It's in Forbes magazine, and the research was pretty extensive with these 300 people. And on average, in order for the relationship to be completely dissolved in your mind, that is, right, it would take 8 years, right? And when I heard that, I was kind of like, wow, this is ridiculous, right? Why does it take so long? Where there's a lot of different variables, right? Especially if it's been a long-term relationship. So on social media, we see a lot of people are doing this relationship hopping and kind of dating, and they're not dating with the intentions of meeting someone that, hey, this might be something long-term. A lot of times people are just dating for a hookup, right? The people
Absolutely.
who are and they're looking for a long-term relationship, they're going to get to find certain things out about each other, right? Because they're giving it time. But if you're just dating for a hookup, right, you're going to drag yourself into these relationships, and you're probably most likely going to bring baggage. And that's what we've been talking about. Myself and RJ, in the last couple episodes, we talked about it. A lot of people bring in baggage into relationships. So it's very difficult to even have a marriage when you're bringing in baggage, right? Because you're constantly transferring all of those thoughts and all of these negative events that happen in your life onto this new partner, which is unfair. And so you're putting yourself at a disadvantage starting the relationship. So that's the reason why I wanted to come up with this topic, because I get these people who come in to therapy, and we're starting to talk about their current relationship and what's going wrong with the current relationship. And then, of course, I'm going to ask, hey, how have your past relationship patterns been, right? Boom. They go back and they start talking about these past relationships. And it's almost as if they have not gotten the closure that they needed, or they haven't gotten over, or they're still suffering some sort of grief or emotional ties with their ex. How are you going to have a healthy relationship with a new person if you're still stuck in the past?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think that as like a lot of the times, like you talk about in the mindfulness minutes that we have on TikTok. So if you are not a follower on TikTok, the link for the TikTok and the Instagram, because we drop content daily. We have these things called mindfulness minutes where we talk about a particular topic for 1 minute, that kind of we all deal with and we all go through. And one of the things that Khalil talked about was mindfulness. That's being focused on the present, focused on fixing the things that you can right now, right in front of you, that you're dealing with in this moment, in this second, in this day. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, but right now. So a lot of times what happens is people are not very mindful of the things that they are experiencing. They're not very mindful of their feelings. That's the main thing, is acknowledging your feelings.
Right.
Acknowledging that it's normal to feel sad. It's normal to feel angry. It's normal to feel confused, or even hell, in some cases relieved, like, good Lord, I'm free
Right.
of that relationship. It's okay. Like, until you acknowledge those feelings, you are not going to be able to heal. The healing starts by allowing yourself to experience the emotions without feeling judged,
Right.
without feeling bad, without feeling like you're a piece of crap. Like, you should be able to go through the cycle of emotions that you are feeling. And by acknowledging that you have these feelings that are associated with the ending of your relationship, it allows you to move one step closer to getting over the relationship.
Right.
I feel like the common mistake that most of us make, Khalil alluded to it earlier, right? About being intentional about what you're doing. As an adult, once you hit the age of, I say, 24, 25, everything that you should be doing, because most of us are kind of discovering ourselves, who we are, free of our parents, between the ages of 18 to, say, 24, 25. So once you hit about 24, 25, that's where you step out into the world and you're having to now have to walk things out. Everything prior to that was preparing you for life up to that point.
Right.
So college, your friends, all of these different things that you went through in life was preparing you for that early adulthood stage. So once you get to about 24, 25, everything that you should be doing should have an intention or should have a purpose
Right.
geared towards what you are hoping to overall achieve. As Khalil alluded to, when you're jumping into these relationships, other to just smash and dash, that does not allow you to be able to build a foundation and set yourself up for the future. And because we're getting into, we're entering into these, because we're not even going to call it relationship if you're just doing that. If you're just, laying up with folks, knocking the boots with folks, entangling with folks, you're not developing emotional roots. You're not developing spiritual roots. You're not developing physical roots, because a relationship that is grounded in health and grounded in growth and grounded in elevation and cultivation is going to allow you to be able to lay those type of roots down. But
Mm-hmm.
when you are just out here just shacking up and just entangling, mixing and mingling with folks, you're not able to do those things. And that's where it becomes counterproductive and those relationships become maladaptive.
Right. And we start to see some of this negative behavior, right, take on a whole new meaning when there's children involved. We talked about that,
Absolutely.
right? Like, oh my gosh, I got somebody pregnant who I wasn't intending on being with. One of the funniest things is I was talking to someone and they were in that type of relationship with another person for a long period of time, right? When you're in that type of relationship for 2 years, right? Knowing that you guys aren't serious. Sometimes you'll have a partner and the other person will have a partner, but you're
Mm-hmm.
still hooking up. And the young lady who's describing this to me was pretty, she was pretty adamant about, like, hey, I knew that that person was only like a hookup buddies, right? Even though I had other relationships, right? I knew I couldn't pursue
Mm-hmm.
a long-term relationship with this other person, right? But they allowed this to continue from like college on to entering into their adult life, late 20s, early 30s, right? And when it finally had to stop because he had kids with another woman and she had kids with another guy, like, literally, they didn't know how to move on, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, we've been doing this for so long, and now we have other people in our lives, we have children in our lives. We've got to stop this. And what
Yes,
puzzled me,
it's
yeah,
unhealthy.
it's unhealthy. And what puzzled me is that they weren't talking about getting married.
Mm-mm.
They weren't talking about being together in a relationship. They both had kids with other people. They both had other relationships they were dealing with. And it was just a physical attraction, obviously. and they could not see each other in any type of long-term situation where they'd be married. And I said, well, wow, how did this continue? Well, why would you let this continue? And then we start talking about it like, hey, she admitted she could not let go of that relationship. Whatever it had been in college or whatever it had been in the past, she was still stuck. And so that's what kind of one of the things that motivated me to talk about the subject is when you're entertaining these types of relationships, there's a lot of stuff that go on into your brain chemically, physically, neurologically, emotionally. There's some impacts that I wanted to talk about, right? It's called emotional imprinting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people have done research on that. Neurotransmitters like oxytocin, dopamine, norepinephrine, all right, they contribute to that feeling of reward and attachment. It's a dopamine release, right? In particular, have a neurological effect that's similar to like a drug addiction. So the more I get the reward, because I know I'm going to get this reward every time I'm with this person, right? You become attached, which is crazy, right? And people don't realize that. That's the reason why these dysfunctional relationships are allowed to continue for a long period of time. Go ahead. What were you going to say, RJ?
The thing about it though, and this is what people have to understand, you have to accept reality. If if you're not accepting reality, you are living in what is called a delusion.
Right.
You have to accept reality and understand and accept that the relationship ended for a specific reason. You have to also avoid romanticizing the past or focusing only on the good times. A
Right.
lot of us do that. Well, we will sit here and they were the worst boyfriend ever or the worst girlfriend ever, but they cooked for me.
Right.
Or we had these long conversations that were so deep, and we just could stare in each other's eyes. No, the relationship was dead because the person did not fit. You did not fit with that person.
Right.
It's time to move on because all you are doing by staying in a relationship that is not healthy for you, that is not going to allow you to grow, that is not going to feed you, that is not going to push you to be the best version of yourself, it's doing the exact opposite. And
Yeah.
too many people do that. They will stick and stay because the relationship is comfortable. It's just what I know.
Yeah. They're
This is
used to it.
all this is what I'm used to. But as Khalil alluded to in his mindfulness minute, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So in order to have things you've never had, if you're looking for peace, if you're looking for a sense of calmness, a sense of loving, a sense of connection, a sense of belonging in a relationship, you gotta let that shit go. Like holding on to a relationship that is not pouring into you, that is not helping you be the best version of yourself, that is not pushing you to be the best version of yourself, as Khalil alluded to, stretching and pulling you to grow and to be better, you got to let that go. But what we tend to do is we tend to hold on to things because it's comfortable. We romanticize, as I alluded to, we romanticize the good parts and completely overlook and make excuses for the bad parts. And
Right.
that does not help anybody. It doesn't allow you to find the person you're supposed to be with, and it doesn't allow the other person to find the person they're supposed to be with.
Right.
Like it
But
just is what it is at that point.
it's natural for people to idealize your partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you've been with them for a long period of time and they've done some good things for you, right? Even during the rough periods of the relationship, right? We might forget all about that negative stuff and
Mm-hmm.
just be focused on the positives. It happens to us. We even have friends like that, right? Where I forget about a lot of the negative character traits of some of my
Yep.
good friends, right? And I'll only talk about the positive ones. Even my wife knows that because there's some of my friends. She's like, "Hey, he a little bit much, right?" I'm like, "Oh, no, no, he's just like that. He always been like that." And I might defend that, but when I look at it without that filter, those rose-colored glasses, right?
Mm-hmm.
I say, "Oh yeah, especially when you look at the behavior patterns, right, or you look at some of their consequences they've had in life, right? Yeah, they might not be the best people, right? But we do that with partners as well, right? We will constantly, especially like RJ said, if someone was a relationship you had in the past, we'll have the tendency to forget the negatives all right, about that person, and even think about going back to that person, because
Boy, see,
I get a
you
lot.
about to make me mad.
Well, and
People
so
will do that though.
yeah, but that's a part of human nature, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
come on, we all have friends, family members, exes, where sometimes it seems like we blocked out the negatives and we
Mm-hmm.
only remember the positives. And I'm gonna compare this to the children of Israel, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
one of my favorite. I don't care if people think it's just literary allegory or whatever you want to call it, or an example, right? I think that's the funniest part of the story. These people leave Egypt, which they were enslaved in Egypt, right? Come over to the land right before they enter Canaan, and they're in the wilderness, right? And they start complaining and said, "We'd rather have been slaves in Egypt. At least we had what we wanted to eat."
Yep. They had what they were used to.
Yeah, but people do the same thing. They'll
Mm-hmm.
want to go back to a horrible relationship. Didn't that man beat you? Didn't
Mm-hmm.
that woman bust your car windows out?
Yeah, that
Was she
makes no
mad at you?
sense. I mean, for me, like I tell people all the time, I will, like, you have to set those boundaries, right? And by setting those boundaries, you have to limit or cut off your contact so that you can move on. You have to. Like, when me and somebody part ways, guess what? We cut off. Ain't no
Mhm.
I'm burning the boats. Ain't no running back, ain't no coming back, ain't no spinning the block, ain't no running into each other. I unfollow you, you unfollow me. Hey, we just moving on. If I see you in
Right.
public, you'll get a head bob. You might get a wave, and then I just keep it moving. Like I'm because at the end of the day, the relationship ended for a reason.
Right.
Now, I'm not now I say that to say this. I'm not a person being a therapist. I'm a person, as I said before in one of our previous episodes. If you're in a relationship with me, we talking about stuff. So I'm not above sitting down and having a conversation. Having it, as we call it, an after action review. I'm not above having an after action review when we part ways, because to
Right.
me, I'm about growth. I'm about elevation. I'm about being the best version of myself. Sometimes I need to be able to do an after action review after the completion of the mission in order to figure out where I went wrong, sustains and improves, so that I can be better in the next relationship. Because as I alluded to earlier, and I keep coming back to it, if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Changes.
So if I don't address the problems or the things that went wrong in this current relationship, I'm dooming myself to repeat them in the next relationship. And
Yep.
then before long, I will find myself by myself. But with that being said, once the relationship is over with and we have decided that, hey, we're just better off not together,
Our ways.
it's time to set boundaries. It's time to cut that off. Burning the bridges. We're burning the boats. There is no, going back. It's done. Because at the end of the thing, I need to protect my peace, and I also want to respect theirs.
Hmm.
Peace is priceless. And anything that costs me my peace, anything that's going to disrupt my peace, anything that is going to come in between me and my peace, I have family members that I don't talk to.
But RJ, there's a notion, right? And I want you to speak on this. There's a notion that people have to be friends with their exes, or people have to have this peaceful, amicable split, and they're both sides are happy, and we can just be friends. Especially with divorce.
I know
There's
you can see my
and I've
face.
heard people say this, right?
You,
Even my ex-wife has said that. We're supposed to be friends,
no,
right?
we're not. No, we're not. We can be respectful.
Because we were co-parents, and
we we can we can be respectful, but
right,
there's a difference between us being friends and us being respectful. So being respectful means I'm not going to go out of my way to disrespect you, disparage you, do anything negative or ugly.
right,
Whereas being friends with your exes and people that you were entangling with, that you were in situationships with, that you were laying up with, that you were hooking up with, that you were
right.
making the beast of two backs with, that you were jumping off the dresser on, cranking the stanky leg on, hitting them with the baby leg, being friends with people that you were hooking up with,
Up with, right,
you're setting yourself up for some backsliding.
right.
Because there's gonna be that time where she got that dress on, that sundress that be hitting just right, because it's getting warm outside. So it's about to be sundress season.
Yeah.
So you gonna have some,
That's the favorite
young
time of
lady
year.
you was out. Yeah, I mean, it's my favorite time of year. Like, I ain't gonna hold you, but
Yeah.
it's gonna be a young lady that you were dealing with, and y'all still conversing and talking, and next thing you know, one thing leads to another. Next thing you know, y'all done slid in each other's DMs about something, and then
Right.
now y'all done slided back to each other. I don't even like, and we've spoken about this on several episodes before. I don't put myself in situations to fail.
Right.
By
Right.
continuing to be friends with somebody that you have been in a relationship with
Or been married to.
or been married to, like, again, there's a difference between being amicable and respectful versus being a friend. Being amicable and being respectful allows you guys to be healthy adults and be in the same space without going Mortal Kombat fatality on each other.
Right.
But by you being friends, it creates an air for you to, fail. It creates a situation where,
People are going to be mad because there's some people who have to be co-parents, right?
I mean, you can be co-parents with somebody without being their friend.
Right. And
You
so
can, you
some
can.
people don't know how to do that. They
I
don't
engage
understand
with
how to do
people all the time. Like I
that.
said, I do not throw out the friend title loosely.
Right.
You
Right. Right.
know,
Right.
when
Right.
you are a friend of mine, you are in rarefied air. It's like winning a gold medal at the Olympics. Everybody tries, but everybody don't get one.
Right. Right.
So at the end of the day, I'm not throwing out the title. I don't, and I do that in all my relationships, not just my friendships,
Right.
where it is a privilege to be a part or to be on this team. That's
Mm-hmm.
the mistake that we make in relationships, where we think that everyone is entitled to sit at our table. Everyone's entitled to be hearing our story. Everyone's entitled to be along for the ride. Not everyone, you have to be exclusive. Everyone does not deserve to be sitting at your table, hearing your story and being on for the ride. That's where you end up with the wrong people who are wasting your time and sucking the life out of you.
Mm.
And that's where, as I said, even if you've got a co-parent, respectful, cordial,
Right.
y'all should be on the same page, reading from the same music, because it takes a village to raise a child. But if we're still friends, guess what? We keying and con,
Right.
loose boundaries turn into no boundaries, and next you know,
Yeah.
people ain't got no clothes on.
Well, look, so that's what I was going to jump into, right? And being in private practice, you hear a lot of different stories, and the people who haven't been able to draw those boundaries, right, still entertain those relationships with the baby mama, the baby daddy, ex-husband, and it prolongs the closure that you're looking for, right? It extends it because we all go through grief and loss, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you go through a breakup, right? And of course there's the anger, of course sometimes it's going to be some bargaining, right? Some is going to be some depression, and then of course the last phase that we want to get into is the acceptance phase and the stages of grief. And I skipped over denial. That's the first part, right? But usually you're not in denial when the relationship's over. Some people are, but most people aren't, right? The relationship's done, especially when the person walk out the door. But when we go through these phases, right, that last phase is the most important, is the acceptance. And if I'm still friends with you, it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be even harder to accept that the relationship is over. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
like you said, hey, once I start ha-ha and kikiing and we hanging out, and then, even especially when there's kids involved, right? And how you can go ahead and sleep over. Go ahead, because I don't feel like driving you home, or you ain't got to drive home. It's too late. Go ahead and sleep over. Next thing you know, another boundary is crossed after that. It's a slippery slope, right?
Yep.
So we have to, we really have to look at some of these things, and we have to say, well, am I extending the pain?
Absolutely.
Because if me and this person aren't together anymore, well, there's usually a reason behind it of why we're not together or why we're not working. Because if we were compatible, or if the relationship was supposed to work, we'd still be together.
Absolutely.
And so those are some of the questions you ask people, and they can't really give you an answer. And I think it's just boundaries. We've always talked about that.
Yep.
It's about
Boundaries.
boundaries all day long. I just think it's certain boundaries. Like if I don't have any boundaries, man, I'm going to let whatever back in. from the past. I don't care if it's 10 years ago. I might bump into an ex from 10 years ago. If I don't have any boundaries, boom, there I go.
Yep. And that's where, you have to shift your focus. For me, as I tell people all the time, nobody's going to care about you more than you care about yourself. And so once a relationship is over, you have to shift your focus to self-care. You went from caring about the we back to caring about the me.
Right.
Too often we're focused on the wrong things, and then we start to neglect ourselves. And no one's going, as I said before, no one's going to care about you more than you care about yourself. So you should be once the relationship is over and you now go into a season of growth, and you grow into a season of healing, you go into a season of recovery, you should be focusing and traversing and focusing on self-care, prioritizing your physical health, your mental health,
right?
Exercise, sleep, eating well. And then, like with your mental health, therapy, journaling, meditation, and in some cases, if need be, medication.
Yeah.
And people have to also find hobbies, reconnect with your passions, reconnect with things that you like to do, reconnect with the parts of yourself that you may have been neglecting. Too often where people get in these relationships and then they get out of the relationship and all they can think about is the relationship.
Right.
Or they take this shitty ass advice of, in order to get over somebody, you got to get on top of somebody or get underneath somebody.
Yeah, get to another.
No, do not do that. Stop it. It is not good for you because, again, hurt people hurt people. Mm-hmm. So if you're still hurt, what you are going to do is you are then going to bring chaos, calamity, catastrophe to somebody else. So take the time to work on you first, get you together, get your shit together, get your house in order, and then come and entertain and date with intentionality and purpose. Because where your relationship may have ended, may be because there was no intentionality and purpose. That's where, again, in order to have things you never had, you got to be willing to do things you've never done. Because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different outcome. So that's where, as I said before, once the relationship is over, your focus should shift to you, your deficiencies, the things that you're lacking in. Hey, maybe I don't have a spiritual connection. Let me start reading my word. Let me go sit in church. Let me go sit down with the pastor. Let me start working some things out. Let me start to develop a relationship with the Lord. Like, those are things that people sometimes overlook and neglect because I'm so caught up on the relationship falling apart, or I'm so caught up on just the other person. But the thing about it, though, is when we get caught up in a relationship and we start to prioritize the relationship over our own self-benefit, at the end of the day, how effectively can you operate in that space if you're not a whole person on your own? People think that relationships are 50-50. And I tell people that's baby back bullshit. A relationship is 100-100. 50-50 is called codependency.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are operating at only half of what your maximum capacity is, when that person steps away from you, guess what? You're always going to be half. You're always going to be lacking. Versus when you come in as 100, they have 100. Guess what? Our 100 plus 100 is 200.
Mm-hmm.
It exceeds maximum capacity because we're operating at our maximum efficiency. So that's where, as I said before, when the relationship is over and the dust is settled and the calamity is being tallied up, at that point, instead of focusing on, woe is me, I don't have nobody, woe is me, I'm lonely, woe is me, I'm going to be a cat lady or a cat man and I'm going to die alone, focus on being the best version of yourself. Sometimes you need to take some time to yourself to rediscover who you are, who God called you to be, who God created you to be. And a lot of times that relationship was a distraction from you reaching your purpose and you operating in your purpose, because I'm a big purpose person.
Right.
That relationship served as a distraction. That person was there to pull you away from what you were supposed to be doing. And that's where, for a lot of us, again, we all want to be booed up, especially during the wintertime because it be cold outside. So you be trying to generate some body heat. But at the end of the day, in the grand scheme of things, when we're adding up the value of the relationship in regards to what it contributes to my life, does it really contribute as much as I'm putting in? Because if it's not contributing, if it's not contributing the same amount, if not more than what I'm putting in, it's doing the exact opposite. It's pulling away.
Draining.
It's draining and it's killing you. And so that's where, as I said before, self-care. Self-care is not selfish. Sometimes you got to take the time and say, hey, I'm cutting everybody off, pause. The people who mind, they don't matter. The people that matter won't mind you working on you. But you have to have that conversation with everyone and let everybody know, hey guys, I'm taking a pause, or I'm taking a step back, or I'm taking a hiatus from social media, from friends, from family. I'm just kind of working on me. I want to sit down and just work on me, getting me together. The people that truly matter, they will recognize real, and those people will allow you to work on you.
They'll give you that space.
They'll give you that space, and they'll give you that grace.
Well, RJ, I want to speak about what you said earlier, right? Taking that time away, right, to work on yourself, right? Because when people leave a relationship, we talked about it, there's going to be grief, right? There's going to be some loss, that feeling of loss. But there's also identity confusion, right? That's one of the things they talked about in the study, right? When you're wrapped up with somebody for a year, 2, 3, 10 years, if you're wrapped up in somebody else's life, you're putting a lot of effort and energy into being compatible. You're putting a lot of effort and energy into making sure that they're okay, right? So when they're gone, well, what are we left with, right? Like RJ said, if y'all been doing 50-50, it's codependent. So you're left looking like, hey, I can't do this on my own. What am I going to do now without my partner, right? And that increases that feeling of depression. That increases that feeling of worthlessness, right?
Absolutely.
And it takes you off of what you should be doing for yourself at that time, self-care, like RJ alluded to. If I'm not taking care of myself, if I'm not taking time out, if I should be withdrawing from social media, right?
Absolutely.
I don't need to be on Facebook seeing what my ex is doing. I have clients where that's how they stalk their ex, right? And I'm like, wait. We don't need to be on Facebook. We don't need to be on Instagram seeing what their next move is. We don't need to see who their next boo is. We don't need any of those things. In order for us to recover, to heal, I got to pull back.
Absolutely.
And I got to work on myself, right? Spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically. I need to get out of my head, especially when you've gone through a rough breakup, because the depression is real. People lose their jobs behind a relationship.
They sure will.
Right. And that's how you live, right? That's how
people will lose their jobs, they will lose their lives behind the whole relationship.
Right. And the important thing is, right, if I notice I'm not doing well mentally, and this is where I'm going to start speaking to African Americans especially, right? Because a lot of my Caucasian clients, man, they know they're really good at expressing if I ain't doing well, and they'll tell me, right? African Americans, we brush off our depression. We brush off our grief. Yeah, man, I lost my homeboy. It is what it is. No, man, that's not right.
That's not healthy.
That's not healthy, right? We'll brush off a relationship. Yeah, man, she's left me, but man, I ain't even. It'll manifest in anger. So yeah, I'm not even messing with her no more. And they're so upset, right? And all you see is the anger, where the anger is easier to display. I saw a guy on TikTok talk about this, right? The anger for men is very easily displayed, right? Because why would we run around and say that we're feeling depressed? Because that makes us feel weak, right? And in a lot of different cultures, this is true, right? Well, you'll see the anger come up because that's a more acceptable feeling for a man to have, right? Just because I'm a man doesn't mean I don't get sad.
Absolutely.
Right? Just because I'm a man doesn't mean that I can't suffer heartbreak, right? I'm not a robot, right? There's some women like that too, right? And so, yeah, we talk about men doing it, but there's some women that they've been taught that anger is a better representation of how they feel than crying, right? Or being sad or being emotionally distraught. So they throwing things around the house and they snapping on coworkers. They're cussing people out, right? And when you find out what's at the bottom, what's at the root of some of these behaviors, a breakup. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I mean, that's where, as I said before, we have to be real honest about certain things. We got to have those tough conversations. We have to be. This is where, like as I was speaking about it earlier, having that after action review, reflecting and learning. You have to identify the lessons learned from the relationship about yourself, your needs, and what you want to move on, what you want to see in the future. For a lot of us, we don't do that. We don't do that. We don't reflect on our past. We don't look at lessons learned, because again, I'm a very introspective person. I don't need to make a mistake one time to recognize, oh shit, that wasn't a good idea. Let me not do that again. Right. So once I learn a lesson, I learn from it and I adapt and I evolve. I don't continue to keep, because it stops being a mistake at that point. It starts to become a lifestyle. It starts to become a choice. And so that's where, for a lot of us, we have to do that. We have to reflect. We have to learn. We have to evolve. We have to grow. Keyword there is grow, because either you choose something different or you choose to keep experiencing the same thing that you've already experienced. And another thing that people have to do is they have to forgive themselves and give themselves grace and mercy, as well as forgive their ex and give their ex grace and mercy. By extending grace and mercy to yourself and to your ex, you are allowing the feelings of resentment or any other negative feelings that you have, you're allowing that to just be unburdened by it. You're allowing yourself to be unshackled by it. Because if you do not allow those feelings if you do not let those feelings go, those feelings are going to continue to weigh you down. You're never going to truly be able to move forward as long as you're feeling that way. So at some point in time, I just have to say, Lord, please forgive me and forgive my ex for how we conducted ourselves in this relationship. That was not a true representation of who we are as people, as individuals. And because it's not a true representation of who we are as individuals, I'm just asking for your forgiveness. And then just turn it over at that point. At that point, I then have to now operate, because now I've asked God for His grace and for His forgiveness. It's time for me to move on. It's time for me to move forward. There's something about forgiveness that is freeing. Mm-hmm. People keep thinking that the forgiveness is for the other person. No, the forgiveness is for you. Exactly. The forgiveness is going to allow you to free yourself of the negativity, the drama, the bullshit, the craziness, the chaos, the calamity. That is what forgiveness does for you. But for a lot of us, what we want to do is, because the relationship didn't go the way I wanted to. The person cheated on me. The person was disrespectful. The person made me feel some type of way. They devalued me. They didn't appreciate me. Oh, I'm going to be mad. If I see them, we on this type of time, I'm going to bust the windows out their car. I'm going to slash their tires. I'm going to show up at their house and I'm going to get my lick back. I mean, because you see that with old buddy that plays for the Pelicans, Zion. Yeah. Where, I mean, it's just, bruh, like I can't even, like, he is hitting everything but the court. Yeah. He is out here hitting everything but the court. That's what he's doing. But you have these women who are out here fighting over him. Yeah. Like the mother of his children's out here catching cases, fighting these other women. I'm so confused. And then a couple years back, you had the adult star sitting here releasing messages back and forth and just tweeting, and like, at some point in time, you just have to release that stuff, because what does that do for you? I'm a person, as I tell people all the time, I am a person that is exceedingly lazy. And being exceedingly lazy, y'all always, Khalil and Unique always laughs when I say this.
Yeah, but he's not lying.
What I tell people is, I'm exceedingly lazy. I am not doing anything that requires a whole bunch of time, effort, and energy if it does not serve a purpose. I save all my effort and energy up for the things that I know serve a purpose, because I'm one shot, one kill. I'm not trying to be taking a whole bunch of shots. So at the end of the day, if it doesn't add value, it doesn't help me be a better person, it doesn't do something constructive, positive, it doesn't serve a purpose, it's not moving me in the direction I'm trying to go, guess what? This guy right here ain't doing it. So I'm sorry. For me, when it comes to getting over a past relationship, I got to just pray about it, ask for forgiveness, ask for grace, and release it. Because again, I can't move forward as long as I'm locked in place. As long as you got this giant weight on your leg, which are the negative feelings that you still have about the relationship or the person, because you can't control what they do, but you can control what you do. And so you can control freeing yourself, unshackling the leg irons off of you that will allow you to step into being a better version of yourself. As long as you're being weighed down and shackled over here in your past, you're never going to be able to walk into your future.
Right. And well, a relationship is always emotionally stressful and draining, right? And then when you talk to someone who just got out of a breakup, RJ, sometimes I think we are, by human nature, right? We struggle with humility, right? Because there's some humility that you have to have during a breakup, right? Because immediately feelings come, even if you aren't the one who said, I want to leave, right? Even if you are the one who said, I want to leave, either one, right? There's some humility in it, right? Because I have to admit that, hey, I failed in this relationship. The relationship is not working for us, or it's not benefiting us. We need to part ways, right? There's some humility in this. As human beings, it's hard to get humble because you're like, man, hey, you leaving me? What? You leaving me after all I've done for you, right? That feeling is very stressful, right? There's some distress tolerance skills that need to be had when you start feeling like that, because automatically it can make you feel less than, right? Automatically it can make you feel worthless. Automatically it can make you feel as if you weren't good enough, right? All of those feelings, right, start to compound on us, right? And then we get stressed out, and the resentment comes, the anger comes, right? For those of you who probably heard me do this on a Mindful Minute, I think I did. I talked about resentment and how that's a killer, right? Resentment comes from two Latin words, right? Re in the verb sentir, to feel, right? So re obviously is again, right? So you have to feel again, right? That's what resentment is. So every time you see that person or someone talks about that person, you're feeling what they did to you, right? And yes, there's usually some sort of righteous indignation or some sort of justification for why you're angry, right? Because if somebody did something bad to you, I get it, right? But like RJ said, if you're not willing to release that, right, you're going to be carrying that around, and that becomes a burden, right? And how are you going to go into a new relationship when you still have this burden, right?
You can't.
And you still, well, and look, this is how the amygdala and hippocampus work, right? The brain, it remembers patterns. So anytime you get into a new relationship and that person does anything remotely close to resembling something that your ex did, oh my gosh, you're going to get this projection on your new partner, and you say, hey, no, I've seen that before. You're not going to do that to me, right? And the person's looking at you like you crazy. They're saying, what are you talking about? Well, I'm starting to feel as if you're going to treat me just like my ex did. That means that person has not healed. That person has not been able to move past the situation. And that person is not going to be good for anybody else, right? And it's sad because we see it all the time. I see it in different sessions I've done with men and females, right? Male and female, right? Not just men, but women and men. And you see this reaction when I explain to them that, hey, you're still dealing with some past trauma. You're still dealing with a breakup that you haven't gotten past, right? You're still dealing with something that has nothing to do about your current present state of being, right? It's impacting it, but it really doesn't have anything to do with it because you're not with that person anymore. And when we start to discuss that, people get kind of like irritated about it. Well, no, I ain't been with that person. And well, you just told your wife or you just told your spouse that you thought they were doing something wrong when they weren't. They don't have, there's no proof that they did anything wrong. you're just projecting a feeling or emotion on these people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, when we start to break that down and we start looking at it, right? Why in the world would you want to jump into another relationship where you have all this unresolved pain, trauma, issues from a past relationship? It's not healthy. It's not going to get you anywhere. You're going to end up destroying another relationship. Like RJ said, hurt people hurt people. So you just jumped into another relationship and hurt that person because they're like, hey, I don't know why the relationship didn't work. I didn't do nothing. The man kept saying I'm cheating. The woman kept saying I'm cheating, right? Now you just destroyed how this person sees a healthy relationship. And so the dynamics just keep going, and it becomes a cycle. And until you get help, and that's what therapy's for, right? Until you get help, you're going to continue those behaviors.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it's important for you to lean on your support system. Whatever that looks like, everyone should have a support system. So talking to your friends, talking to your parents, talking to family, talking to a therapist, keyword, talking to a
Talk to your
therapist,
therapist.
instead of bottling everything up. Because again, if you have a soda and you just keep shaking it, shaking it, shaking it, shaking it, shaking it, eventually that carbonation builds up and then it explodes. For a lot of us, we will do that. We will just stuff our emotions. In therapy, we call that emotional stuffing. That instead of addressing our emotions, we just push them down and just pack on top of them, pack on top of them, pack on top of them, pack on top of them. And the problem with that is the things that you do not address eventually will address you. Eventually gets to a point to where there's only so much stuff that you can put into a garbage can before it starts to overflow. So by addressing your problems and leaning on your support system, you start to address and start to process some of the feelings that you are having, some of the thoughts that you're having, some of the beliefs that you're having. You start to kind of challenge some of those things instead of walking around thinking that everything that you say is right or everything that you do is right. You start to have those dialogues with people. It's okay, where a lot of us we struggle with this particular one because we feel like it makes you weak to ask for help. It makes you less than to say, hey, I don't have the answer, or that I just need somebody to just listen to me and just hear me when I, just so I can just get these feelings or thoughts out. I think that for a lot of us, we struggle with that. We struggle with that. And we also struggle with recognizing that you have to be patient with the process. Getting over somebody doesn't happen overnight. Healing is not a straight line. Some days are going to be better than others. There is no correct timeline for getting over somebody. Like, Jesus, you would think that people would understand that, but they don't. People think that there's a set way that I have to get over somebody, or there's a set, I got to be over somebody in 2 weeks or a week or a month. No. There are going to be days. There are going to be days where you're feeling yourself. You out here dressing the best. You looking your best. You looking good. You smelling good. Nobody can't tell you a goddamn gone thing. There are going to be days where you're not feeling yourself. There are colleagues that I've worked with where I could tell that they were having a good day based off of how they were dressing.
Yep.
They showed up to work and they looked how they felt. They showed up to work and they were dressed vibrant. Everything was matching. Earrings, glasses, nails, hair, everything was together. And then there were other days, personality was just beaming. They the life of the party today at work. And then there are other days where, they dress like, hey, I'm just not feeling myself today. And so you could tell that there was something wrong. You could tell that something happened or they just weren't feeling themselves. And that's where it's important that you recognize that we all go through things. And by recognizing that we all go through things, you are not super hard on yourself. You're not overly critical. You're not expecting yourself to just cope and deal on an island by yourself. And that's where, as I said before, leaning into your support system, because sometimes you have to lean into your family members, lean into your friends, lean into your talking to your therapist on a regular, consistent basis. Because in order for this is, a life hack. In order for something to work for you, you have to consistently do it. Mm-hmm. That's for all facets of your life. In order to be good at something or for it to work like it's supposed to, you have to consistently do it. You can't just be sometimey about things and expect to be great.
Right.
The
1,000 hours.
the
Right.
the
1,000
the
hours.
the greats at anything do it all the time. It
Right.
becomes, as my man C.T. Fletcher likes to call the Compton Superman, he calls it a brilliant obsession. They become obsessed with it. Be obsessed with being the best version of yourself, because ain't nobody gonna care about you more than you care about yourself. And I am obsessed with being the best version of me.
Right.
I can't be nobody else other than me. This is the only person I can be. This is the only body I got. This is the only life I got. So I have to be invested in being the best version of myself. And before we go, I wanted to make sure that I tapped on this particular topic as well, of making new memories.
Mm.
It
Yeah.
is one of the things that is going to help the healing process is by filling your time with new experiences.
Yeah.
Rather that be traveling, doing something you've never done, meeting new people, starting a new job, moving to a new location, doing new things is going to start to help you get over certain things. It's gonna, because again, like Khalil alluded to, when you've been with somebody for a long time, there are a lot of things that you guys did. There's gonna be a lot of places that you went to. So by going to new places, guess what? You're not reminiscing about your past, your old boo thing, because I'm not going to those same places. I'm not in the same locations. I'm not hanging out with the same friends. I'm not going to the same restaurants, the same grocery stores. I'm not. By doing new things, you create new experiences that start to replace the old ones.
Right.
It's no different than when we buy shoes or we buy clothing. We buy shoes and buy clothing to replace old clothing and shoes.
Right.
So
It's
when
called, people don't understand, that's called neuroplasticity, right? Your
yes,
brain needs you to do that. You have to do things because your brain remembers patterns, right?
yes,
So if I'm only used to this one pattern of doing things, right, I have to establish new neural pathways, right? I got to do things differently, see different people, do different things. Else, your brain's going to go back to that old pattern, and you end up finding yourself chasing that same old person.
absolutely. I mean, the goal of this is to build the fulfilling life you're excited about. That you can't wake up fast enough. I remember being a kid on Christmas Day, boy. I couldn't. It was just like I couldn't go to sleep the night before.
Yep.
I'm
Couldn't
just
sleep.
because I'm ready to get to them presents. I'm ready to start tearing some wrapping paper up. When you start to develop new experiences, you are excited about the next day.
Yeah.
You are the whole, because as I said before, the whole point of this is to build a fulfilling life that you're excited about, independent of your past relationship. As you start to develop and build new experiences, you start to look forward to that. You're no longer thinking about your past because you're thinking about your present. You're, as Khalil alludes to, you're being mindful. Because guess what? I got shit to do today. So I'm going over here. I'm going to go do that. I'm going skydiving. I'm going riding the hot air balloon. I'm going to go pick some strawberries. I'm going to go. You doing different things. So guess what? By doing different things, experiencing things you've never experienced before, you're not thinking about your past boo thing.
You're not thinking,
You
right?
you not worried about what your boo thing doing. You
That's
ain't
it.
on you not on Facebook looking Facebook stalking them. You're not on their IG looking to see what they doing. You're not on their TikTok. Out of sight, out of mind, because now you're occupying your mind with new experiences. You're stimulating your mind with things that it's never been stimulated with before. New sounds, new places, new spaces, new smells, new tastes. I mean, it becomes freeing at that point. So instead of quagmiring, dwelling, being stuck in the past, free yourself to experience what life has to offer you in the present. Don't worry about the past because you can't unchange it. There's no magic. There's no remote that allows you to fast forward and rewind and stop and pause. No, we live each day. We wake up, God willing, we wake up and see another day and another day and another day and another day and another day until our story's over with. But too often what happens is we choose to dwell in the past knowing that there's absolutely nothing that we can do about what happened back over there.
Right.
So we are going to end the conversation there. This is Try Not to Overthink It signing out. I'm RJ.
And I'm Khalil.
If you like what you heard, you like what you saw, we ask that you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you would prefer to listen to us, I don't know why you would prefer to listen to us instead of watch us, because we are some very good looking people. My mommy and daddy made this. I'm motherfucking gorgeous. So if you would like to listen to us instead of watch us, we can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Audible, pretty much anywhere you get your audio files, we can be located. If you would like to support us even further, we can be also found on social media on Instagram and TikTok. We drop content there daily. So if you would like to support us even more, I will link the accounts down below, and please follow us there and check out the content that we create there. But this is us signing out, and we will catch you guys next time. Peace.